Welcome to the Place Live, as always, on a Tuesday afternoon at 12 o'clock in Dallas, and it is 6 o'clock, if I am correctly, in Europe, at least most European places where we are. That's the last week. Next week we'll be back on your time, 7 o'clock in the evening. So you can feel it, right? We're an hour closer than normal, but next week we are going to be an hour more away from each other because then you have daylight saving time. Now, let's come immediately to the point. I don't think a lot of people really care about wintertime, summertime, and stuff like this, because what is the most discussed topic nowadays with everyone, to a point that we get even already tired of it because you cannot go anywhere or we talk about it. So what would that be? Type it right in and I will say it to you. It's of course coronavirus, which is the layman terms of COVID-19, COVID-19 in short, which already indicates that this is not the first outbreak of coronavirus, right? This is just another thing. Now, I am not going to talk about what to do at the coronavirus or not. That is not my place. I am not a medical doctor or any of such kind. So one of the things that I wanted to address, and when I wrote the invitation for this, I had maybe a slightly different feeling about it than when I think about it right now. My mind immediately jumped about this new virus, as we call it, must cause a lot of anxiety and fear among a lot of people. That just cannot be different, and it typically caused those kind of things. You saw that with other big events in the world, at least the ones that I lived through. I can hardly imagine how it is to live through something like World War II. But I'm going to mute you, Monique. And so I can hardly imagine how it is when you live through a world war, when these global things are going on. But I surely can remember 9/11, right? September 11, when when the planes started to crash in the World Trade Center in New York. And it was a thing that globally affected us, but in a way, it never really hit home if you think about it. And life picked up relatively quickly for most of us, besides the news. This what's going on right now, and I did not know that, by the way, at the time that I wrote the invitation last week, or had the idea to do a topic around this thing. So how do we react when something like global threatening us, and what type of fears are then coming up in us, and can we do something about it? Because in the place we have talked more often about what to do about fear, and fear is your bigger blocker of getting to your goals and achievement, and that's all really good coaching talk, and I love to talk about these things. But this is a whole different phenomena, and I was thinking about it, not knowing that just a few days later, a lot of things in my own environment, and I give you a couple of examples, which is probably true in the Netherlands, if not more true in the Netherlands and at other places, if there are people online from other places too, affected them as well. So first of all, our social life collapsed to a big extent, right? So we cannot go to a gym anymore as we want. We cannot go for all the dances on the screen of on the call. You cannot go to a dance studio when you want. So we got those kind of things. So those are annoyances, at least, right? If so, for some people, like if you're a strong competitive dancer and you want to go to a big competition and you want to get yourself ready for it, you have to stop your routine. So that's bad. Then we had, not necessarily in that order, people started to hoard stuff. And we have seen like a million jokes of it. I'm at a point that I don't think they're even funny anymore, to be honest. But we have seen people, buying, I don't know how many rolls of toilet paper. Why toilet paper? Who knows? You would maybe say, uh, you know, tissues to clean your hands and stuff like that would be a little bit more logic to buy first. But no, people bought, they buy them now too, by the way, but they bought first toilet paper. Why? I don't know. Maybe, we were joking about things like maybe this whole thing was kind of instigated by the toilet paper people, right? So because they make good money now and stuff like that. And then we had other jokes about that too. So I'm not going to add more jokes on the toilet paper. I think Dutch people tend to make jokes about toilets and poop and stuff anyhow more than enough. We even have a Dutch saying, and I say it in Dutch, so excuse me for all the Americans online. Al is het praatje nog zo rond, het draait altijd uit op stront. And if you want to type really fast, then I'll say it one more time, and then you can translate it. But I'm not going to translate it. But I'll say it one more time on Facebook Live. Al is het praatje nog zo rond, het draait altijd uit op stront. And so that's another Dutch poop joke. Has nothing to do with the coronavirus, by the way. And so that is typically, yeah. So if you see some flickering light, that is just my early Christmas, thing that I do here is lights. Just, I'm kind of a little bit affected by all the technology here. I'm getting to the point, so stay with me, please, for today. And so I was thinking about these things, and in the meantime, I saw other things happening. So people hoarding, that's kind of all, good. And I'm not so affected by it, or definitely not so impressed. Then, of course, I already told you fitness centers and stuff start to, at least all events, all big events started to get canceled. And that had such a big effect on people that I know who make a living out of working at those events. And so that brought me to the idea, if that's the case with those people, that must be going on with other people. And quickly you saw also other people reacting on social media. And this is the time when I'm complete limbo, or I'm in complete split. Should I like social media, or should I completely hate it? Because it did a lot of good in bringing people together, but it also, is now a place where we can dump everything that think they know something about this, field, that they are compelled to share that. Well, am I different? Is Jean different in this case? Maybe not. So bear with me. I'm getting to the point where I do think that I have something to offer. So people were losing their jobs all the time, left and right, and have no clue whether their work will pick up. I'm a dance teacher, and I am from a large extent also dependent on what we call private lessons and teaching dance classes. And the dance classes, at least the ones that we teach in the class, have stopped. Our studio, actually, by the way, this is not a commercial, but it's just true, decided to do virtual dance classes. And so that is something kind of interesting how that works. And so they they you see all kind of activities where people step up and do other things, but a lot of people are left in the dark, as I am right now. So I think this is kind of symbolic to my stories. They left in the dark to and don't know what to do. So besides the threat of the virus itself, there are other things that are an immediate concern. Now, all these things I did literally not know when I was writing the invitation last week to do something about a different type of fear, that would hit us on way more levels than I could imagine. Right, way more levels than I could imagine. I did not know, for instance, that Italy would be completely closed off. I did not know at that time that doctors in Italy at this moment literally have to make a choose who is going to live and who's going to die. You can only imagine what goes through the head of this medical professional, how to make that choice, and we expect those people to do that. So here's the thing: people have to step up in roles and responsibility that they don't even imagine that they ever had to do that. Now you would say, well, a doctor is used to that. Trust me, I don't know any doctor that on this scale has to make those type of decisions. And we all have to make decisions at this moment, um, as on a day-to-day basis. Do I go out of home? Do I, do my groceries? All that kind of stuff. And in the back of our mind, when we make these decisions, we say, do I take a lot of risk when I take that decision, or don't I? That's basically what it comes down. If you look at all these things and you want to, and that's typically what I always do in the place, I try to narrow it down to kind of the simplest denominator in this question. And the question is, when you go out for grocery, when you go with your kids to a play park, when you make a stroll around the neighborhood, or when you go like I do later on, teach a virtual dance class, I have to go to another place. Is that a wise decision to do in this environment? I kind of suspected that these kind of things would play a role. Of literally 5 days ago, when I wrote the invitation for the place for today, but I had no clue that on December, what is it? December the 17th, not December, March, of course, March the 17th, that actually would be such a big reality, that I even myself are confronted every day with those choices. I was talking to my family in the Netherlands. My parents live in an elderly home, and they are completely closed off from the outside world. Now, don't immediately go to the police, but my brother-in-law, he broke in so that he could visit my dad and give him some company. Good for him. He's military, so kudos to our military people. Don't put it on the internet right now. Oh, I just did it myself. uh, Anyhow, so those are the choices. We are concerned about very simple, apparently very simple human things, like, is my dad lonely? And at the same time, somewhere else in the world, and that could be that same person, the person that I talk to has a pretty big responsibility, by the way, in life, has to take completely different type of decisions, closing of countries, uh, choosing all the way up to choosing between life and death. And the religious people say only God can choose between life and death. I'm a believer myself, but I see now literally today that other people have to do that too for that decision, right? For that decision, I don't even know about how many people are actually cut off from home. Probably I can fly home to the Netherlands to my family. I still call it my home, but I probably have a hard time to come back to the United States. So more decisions than ever are now related to very things that we call our basic needs in life: food, breathing, just very simple thing. We are very hit on a very basic level of life. And luckily I am always surrounded with people with a little bit more positive positive look at life, and they want to see they want to see the life from a positive way, and there are a lot of positive to share too. So before I do my spiel and my talk on fear, let me share you a couple of things that some specialists, everyone knows a specialist now. Did you notice that? If they say something, and I'm a dance teacher, I cannot say, hey, I have something to share about coronavirus and I'm a dance teacher. No, they say, I talk to a specialist. Or they say, I have inside information. Don't tell it to anyone yet, right? But I truly have inside information, all right? Don't do that, guys. So don't exactly do what I am doing right now. What I'm doing right now is sharing you a pretty okay list, verified, to be honest, of things that we should be a little bit more positive about. Yeah. Okay. So I do it. Don't do as I say, and in this case, don't also do as I do. First of all, what can we be positive about all these things? Well, we know what it is, right? Just think about it. Years and years ago, some of you might be even too young to know when that happened, when the HIV virus was there. HIV, the V stands already for virus, so that is a contamination. no pun intended here, um, is is when that broke out, and we call that AIDS, but those are two slightly different things, actually, to be honest. But no one knew that what it was. That took years before we literally understood what was happening, and it started in Africa mostly, right? And then it hit a certain group in our society. So we thought it was related to behavior of that group, which was to some extent even not true. But we know what it is. So compared to something else, we quickly actually knew very what it was. We didn't know immediately what the source was, but we definitely knew what it was. Secondly, our medical industry is very well capable of detecting the virus. So knowing what it is and immediately recognize it, those are two different things. We know that. So be happy about that. If you have some complaints about throat, coughing, all that kind of stuff, right? And you go to a doctor and there is a kit available to test you, they know within I think 24 hours already, and I think they found something new that they can actually know it within hours what it is. Um, Thirdly, the situation in China is hugely improving, and to an extent that we still have to see if it's true. But the first thing is true is they had in the province where the virus it was most devastated, they had a dedicated hospital to the virus, let's say at a coronavirus hospital, and they closed it down. They can do it now through the regular medical care. I mean, that's amazing, right? Because the numbers in China is improving so fast that actually the numbers are going down. That's a good sign. It doesn't mean that they drop on our side. Typically, it follows the same timeline, but it's at least a good sign. So that's a big thing. 80% of the cases are actually very mild. So that is a good thing too. Actually, there might be even more cases than we know, and it lives in us, and we just don't get all these symptoms, but you could still contaminate someone else. But most of the people actually don't die from it now. Don't say that to the people who are actually dying, because that's not a good thing to hear, right? But most people actually don't. Um, then there are more and more cases where people actually heal from it. So if you get it, you actually heal from it. So they actually know how to do that. There are actually 7 patients in India where they actually treated the people, and they were healed very well with experimental drugs, but nevertheless, yeah. The symptoms, strangely enough, is super mild for kids. So only 3% of the people under 20, is affected in the same way as the rest of the people who are affected. That's just an amazing thing, luckily for our kids. And I'll come back to how to minimize and ease the mind of our kids, but also to how to let them behave responsible in this situation. I have 2 kids under the age of 20, so kind of, I'm an expert in this thing, right? Everyone is now an expert. So it's something very simple. The virus can be wiped clean. If you have it on your clothes, if you have it on a tabletop, it can be wiped clean. Where does the virus stays on really long? On metal surfaces. So you have metal tables, be very careful, clean them really good, clean, because that's where the virus can stay on for a long time. On all other surfaces, it dies off relatively quickly. Yeah, so that's a good thing. It doesn't stay out there and it lives forever. It doesn't, it really dies. There are already, and this is even 2 days old, there are actually vaccine prototypes. In fact, the Erasmus University of the Netherlands, right, actually found already antibodies. And when you know antibodies, then you can create vaccines. Now, you can be against vaccines all you want, but that's a good news. Secondly, once someone is healed, like the patients in India, the blood or the plasma of those patients can be used to create vaccines too. So that is really good news. Now, we can all be negative and saying that take years and years. Maybe, I don't know. I am not an expert in this case, although I claim to be like 4 times already in this call. But that is honestly the truth. And last but not least, um, So a vaccine doesn't heal you yet, right? It can prevent it. And then last but not least, I already told you that we have a good outlook on things that actually they have medicines on the way that that could help us. It's actually, it's strangely as it is, it's actually a mix of what they use also to help people that are infected by HIV. So that seems to be very helpful to cure people of coronavirus. So those are two things, make sure that you don't get it. And a vaccine could help with that, and responsible behavior. So that is something that you could say, hey, I can help people with it. Now, if that's also good, why did you not post that then on the internet? Well, I could, but I don't think that would come across really nice if I say, hey, I'm Jean Dorf, I am a life coach, and I happen to know a specialist who told me this, right? So I would be one of those. This is my own tribe, my little selective group of people who at least spend an hour a week with me and is willing to listen to me, why they, whether they believe it or not. That's a whole different case. But trust me, in this case, I kind of did my homework for this. So that's it. So I think you can be positive about it. Don't do like I did, just give them a whole list of 10. But there are some people who say, oh, they will never find a vaccine. Then just give them those two things that I told you, right? Oh, I said, oh man, it's all happening. See what's happening in China. I said, yeah, that's a good thing. Indeed, look at what's happening in China, because in China it's going down. That's a good point. So, so use that in that way. Does that make sense? Don't say, I have a list of 10 here, listen to it. No, use it when it's appropriate. And that is what I want to talk mostly about, right? So this fear, some people call this, in psychology, we call this apocalyptic fear, right? And apocalyptic fear means that people are afraid that something really bad will happen to the earth and that we all vanish in thin air. And it could be, we are afraid of the meteors, or we are afraid of aliens, or we are afraid of the zombie attacks and stuff like that. So that fear was already a known fear, and some people actually have to go in therapy to be treated by it. And so that was a known thing. We did not know as a life coach that actually that fear is now pretty real, right? This is kind of like a mini version of The Walking Dead. You don't know who you talk to. So that fear suddenly is really real. And I talked to someone outside who was looking at our roof just a moment ago, and he actually asked me, are you one of those people that I can shake hand with, or do we have to do the elbow thing, or the foot shake? Yeah, that's a new thing. We foot shake now. We don't handshake anymore. We do the foot shake. Now, so everyone needs to know what they need to do. So the world splits in two suddenly. That's always easy, right? It's always easy to think black and white. People underreact, which is not a good English word, or people overreact to what's happening in the world. And people that are overreact are not saying that they overreact, because no one believes that they overreact if they overreact, and no one believes that they underreact if they underreact. Does that make sense? No one does that. Everyone thinks that they react in the appropriate way that they believe so. So the first thing that we need to do, let's say we are a group of 7 on the call right now, including myself. Let's say we want to act responsible and maybe have, put in a different behavior. And most of you that I know already do. First of all, we should always respect what anyone chose to do, as long as they don't hurt someone else. Now, okay, if I buy 20,000 rolls of toilet paper, that means that the next one cannot buy toilet paper. So maybe I hurt that person a little bit, right? But that's a little bit far-fetched, right? If I don't really hurt someone, we should acknowledge. Remember that what we did last week. We should invite every emotion is welcome. There is a reason why that people believe, that person believes they need to overreact, and the expression of the overreaction is buying the toilet paper. Now, what are we people, including me, by the way, so good on? We always react on the expression of the person. The expression was the hoarding. The expression was, I don't go out of my house anymore, but the expression could also be, I don't care, right? But it all comes from the same source. An underreaction, believe me or not, is reacting to the same fear. Because if I underreact, very likely if I talk to that person, it is just saying, I don't see the fear. It is not there. It's people that completely don't want to see they want to be oblivious. So they want to act cool and say, oh man, this will go away. Don't worry about it. So they want to act cool, right? They want to pretend it's not there. It's a very human reaction. So what we do on the internet, and I think if I was able to stop it, and if I was Mark Zuckerberg, I wrote a code to do it so that we don't see that thing on Facebook. But Mark Zuckerberg is really happy with all this extra use of Facebook because it goes up the numbers. But we should stop reacting to the expression of what people do. Does that make sense? And we also should be aware of ourselves, how we express our fear. Now, you cannot blame someone when they are afraid to express it in a real weird way. But let me take out a fear of myself. It's a lot less, and you guys will laugh about it. But yeah, I'm an arachnophobe. I have a little bit of fear of spiders. So if you ever seen me reacting when I see a spider, then it's completely ridiculous. I am like maybe 15,000 times bigger than this incredible tiny spider, but I jump and run out of the house as if there is, an affected person with coronavirus in the house. And I mean that very serious. So you thought I made a joke, but that's an overreaction. See, that's an overreaction. So you can laugh about it, and people typically laugh about it. But what people like my brothers, they try to tease me more with more spiders, putting them in my bed and all that kind of stuff. What people don't know, if you truly have a fear like that, how that runs in your mind. It truly makes you crazy. You can't help it at that moment. If you truly have a phobia, and a lot of these phobias, they sound like nonsense for people that they don't have, if they don't have it, like people who have fear to go outside. Man, just don't be normal, go outside. I truly can help those people, but the fear itself is a really nasty thing. What we can do as coaches and as therapists, I'm not a therapist, a disclaimer, by the way, I'm not a therapist, is that we typically can help people to express it slightly different. So I have learned to express my fear for spiders slightly different. I am not less afraid of them. I'm even afraid of them when they are behind a glass. Seriously. I always wait with the people that live in the same house as me. I make an agreement with them. If there is a tiger in the house, I am more than willing to chase away the tiger, as long as you chase away the spiders. Yeah. So fear, fear. Now that's you have to translate to something like that. So I'm just taking often myself an example. There's a reason why I don't like to go to South America, because I know in South America there are a lot of big spiders, gigantic spiders, and you might not see them, but the fact that I could see them terrifies me to death. And I've learned to do something about it. Seriously true, seriously true. But you have to just see how that works in your mind. So that coronavirus was really far away. And when you're not an arachnophobe like me, let's say the coronavirus is a spider. Yeah, man, don't care. That's nothing. Don't worry about it. But when you're like me and you see that the coronavirus is a virus that expresses itself of a tremendous multiplying of spiders, my fear comes up really big. And when I hear that it hits my homeland, the Netherlands, my fear becomes even bigger, even if I'm not affected by it. So I'm going to buy spider traps. In the Netherlands, I go to buy anti-spider paper. I'm going to buy an anti-spider suit. I do all kind of irrational things because it's driven by fear. And we all have this fear, even the people that underreact. Don't think that the professionals who are deal with it don't have the same fear. They just have the courage to push through that fear and see that they need to help people. And there it's where it's coming. So if you find in your environment someone that you can help to ease their fear, it actually will help you too, right? So here a little example, and then I give a couple of other examples. On Friday, Irene talked to me. Can I say that, Irene? Can I tell you a story for a little bit? Yeah, Irene talked to me, said, man, I lost all my work just in one day. In one hour, actually, her inbox exploded from jobs that were canceled on her, and jobs that she was, going to do or applied for, or we call those things brand ambassador jobs. I don't know if that translates into Dutch, but those are people who actually promote products. And excuse me if I don't do fully right to what brand ambassadors do, but that kind of translates a little bit better to Dutch. If you promote products, and all those people, they work at events and they work in supermarkets and they work in malls and they work sometimes even on the street to hand out flyers, hand out products, or sell products or advise products and all that kind of stuff. The whole scale, right? All those jobs and many jobs completely disappeared. Now, not because I'm so brilliant, but she and I were talking over a cup of coffee and saying, wow, if you are affected, Irene, many more people must be affected. And when we saw and thought about the number of people who were affected by that, we could crawl back and say, okay, how can we save ourselves? But I don't know where. Like I said, I don't want to say that Irene and I are better people than anyone else, but for some reason we felt compelled to say, can we maybe create something to help those people? Can we do that? And just that thought of helping other people through dealing with their fears, in this case that was, what if I never get a job again, or what if this is so long that I go completely bankrupt, helped us to at least step out a little bit and do something else. And it completely changed my look at how to look at these things. That is my challenge of today. Yeah. So my title was How to Deal in Times of F.U.D. It sounds almost like a bad word, but it stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Is okay, you cannot always get away your fear. You can definitely not always get away your uncertainties, but you can do something about your doubts. Most of the time, if you're very passive, you can still develop a new plan. You can put your other plan a little bit on hold and develop a new plan. There is always something good in action. Now, here's a little bit where I, as a believer, a religious man, comes a little bit in limbo, because we also have a saying that we should rest and take a step back and be calm at the same time. So if I say take action, what I mean is don't go to the action and see if they have toilet paper there. That's what I mean. Action is the store in the Netherlands, by the way. It's the same as a dollar store in the US, right? So that's where they sell a lot of cheap stuff for, give and take a euro, whatever you buy, it's always around a euro. So they call it the action. That's not the action I'm talking about. I'm talking about, think about it, what you could mean for someone else, and that could be just around the corner. And you will see that lifts your fear and the fear of other people too, because when they feel you do that, so they say a lot of bad things about the US. But if I only look in my own community, what I see is happening right there. Immediately, people were sending out on our local social media stuff that they knew that parents sometimes are dependent for lunch for their kids when they go to school. Does that make sense? There are people in the US, they are not rich, they are close to being super poor. And if their kids cannot go to school, they have to provide lunch for that kid themselves, and they cannot afford it. So it's a public school. They are happy that kids can go to school for free. Yes, in the United States for free, right? And they get lunch there for free, right? That's normal practice. Now you see the problem. The kids cannot go to school, and suddenly the parents who are already in trouble and maybe even more in trouble, cannot even give their kids lunch. And you see the neighborhood immediately stepping up here and saying, hey, we want to help you people out. So I'm not saying that you always have to do something really big, but if you can do something for people to help them with their fear, and sometimes that's just listening. And in my dad case, it was just my brother-in-law who just went a little bit against the rules. I'm not sure if it's really smart because he could infect all those old people, but it's maybe still a little act of humanity, right? So that helps us not immediately away from our fear, and and definitely not from the uncertainty because we don't know what's going to happen, but it definitely can help us with the doubts, because doubts always come from the feeling that you are helpless, right? So fear, we cannot always do something about it. But the fact how I help myself a lot with the fear of spider is I'm not helpless. My shoe is bigger than you, dear little spider. I am not helpless, right? And although my shoe is often on my foot and then I have to stamp on you, and that would disgust me completely, I can still throw my shoe. And I can throw my shoes now really well. I'm a very proficient professional shoe thrower against spiders. And, we need to keep these talks a little bit light, but you know what I mean. You're never helpless. You're never helpless. When you feel doubt, it's only a fact that you think you're helpless, right? So, so that's definitely what we need to do. See where you actually need to change your plan a little bit. I know some people have a plan to go to the European Championships and become European champion. And I think that's a great plan. I'm a big supporter of that plan. I am behind that plan. But unfortunately, this year, that might not be true. It is gone. So that gives us doubt, But those two people who actually are on the call, Hans and Belinda, are actually well on the way to at least have a really good shot at it. And just a week ago, we were just kind of joking about Italy, that their competition was out. It's not so funny joke anymore, unfortunately. But then it was kind of a funny joke. So the world changed really quickly, and so that's it. Does that mean that they have to do, okay, let's stop dancing now? No, they said, yesterday, let's just take a run in the neighborhood and let's keep our stamina up. It's a new plan, right? It's a new plan. It could be just in line with your own plan. And if we can help people to say there's always something we can do. So yeah, but I don't have any work anymore right now. Okay. Maybe, you know, maybe there are other people, like in this case, Irene and Jean, who kind of offered you a job to do maybe slightly different work than you do. Now, and then the last thing that I want to end with is maybe, just maybe, some of the things that we lived through and that we are now affected by were things that were already wrong in our lives to begin with, but we didn't see them that they were wrong, right? Maybe, right? So it's always very careful. I'm always very careful to, try to coach people who are already in a difficult situation. So it's kind of very safe to do that to people that I know really well or myself. So if you actually already were in a job position that and in the Netherlands, they took it completely the wrong way, the politics. I think we should all put them out of the country or something. But if you have chosen for a line of work where you trade money for time, or where you trade time for money, and you're typically in a work when there is no work, you also don't have money, you kind of could have known that you would set yourself up for problems if you don't put money aside to help you. Now, if you don't have enough income, that allows you to put money aside, this is just a really great story, only it doesn't help you. But what you could always do is find a way to get out of that situation. Now, most of the time, and we lived, my generation and most of you on the phone, we lived in a time where everything was actually pretty cool. All these things, yeah, we need to do. We need to take care of ourselves later. We need to do all these things, but we never have that strong feeling, right? The people that were born and lived through World War II, they had a different sense of safety than we have. Talk to the people who lived through, and they have a different sense about food. If you come from the Netherlands and you say to an older Dutch person, I'm hungry, then they say, you don't know what hunger is. You have no idea. You didn't live through the winter of 1944, because that's when people knew what hunger was. I said, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm hungry. I mean, I skipped breakfast. So I'm pretty sure I'm hungry. That's what my kids would say, right? That's probably what I would say. Now, imagine that this situation goes way beyond something else and that we hit a similar thing. I tell you that we would talk to our generations after us also completely different. You think you guys are safe, right? It's not. Safety is one of the primal things that drive us in life to begin with. Our safety, like I said, is violated. Any reaction, you can bring it back. You can say, okay, I don't see it, and therefore I act cool, or I hoard, and therefore I don't act so cool, but I overreact. But that's it. So you can also take the time. We have it anyhow, besides that you really have to figure out how to live with the same person for a few weeks in a row in the same house. That's another challenge. Right, so that's kind of a challenge too. But you can really figure out, so well, what is there in my life that I was so comfortable about already that I maybe should have paid a little bit of attention on. And for a lot of people, that's work, right? Because that immediately is the case. But let's be honest, you can't help if you're older. I'm not a young person, so that's maybe a thing. But what you could have helped is how healthy you are. Not everyone, if you have a disease that you cannot do anything about, sure, I am with you, right? I protect you. I build a wall around your house if I have to, right? But there are many people out there who are at more risk. And to be very honest, if they look at their own lifestyle, maybe, just maybe, they should have taken a little bit care of their own health. Do you know, I was talking to Hans is on the line too. I was talking to Hans, I found while I was preparing for this, I came across this number, which was really, that kind of surprised me. Did you know that before 1970, in the Western Europe countries, because that's where the research was done, there was not almost no young person with diabetes 2. Only elderly persons above 65 had diabetes 2, which was known at that time as diabetes for older people. Yeah, old people diabetes. Do you know that now in the United States, 20% of the young people are at risk of having diabetes? That is shocking. Do you know that if you have diabetes, which is really bad, I hope you don't have it, but you are at greater risk when coronavirus hit you. So that is also the reality. And that is, we don't talk about it because we're in the midst of the crisis right now, best we can. So I'm not saying that let's now go out there and yell at all those those kids that drink too much Coke and stuff like that. No, don't do that. But we can journal for ourselves saying, hey, I have kids, I have nieces, and I have nephews. Maybe when this is all over, you know, I can start teaching them a different lifestyle. So that's one thing. Yeah. So we can take a reflection, sit down a little bit, take a reflection in our life and see, okay, I cannot stop the coronavirus. I cannot do that. I can at best, act responsible in a way how I think that I act responsible. Great, I'll go with you. But do that now. Do that tomorrow. Use the time and say, hey, what are the things in my life that I can have an impact on? Maybe on my own life, maybe on my kids' life. I talked to my daughter, and she was concerned for a couple of things. Very funny. I'm not sure if there's family online, so we'll find out soon enough, because then I get hate mail and all that kind of stuff. Don't do that, please, to me. And But my daughter, yes, she called me and she said, "Hey, Dad, how are things in the United States?" And said, "Yeah, a little bit better than in the Netherlands, but not much." I said, "How are things at home?" She said, "Yeah, I'm in the middle of school exam and they postponed it with 3 weeks, which is of course not so good because her final exams are a little bit at risk. So I'm worried for her right there." I said, "Yeah, and all my work stopped." She said, "So she is working next to school, so I kind of was a little bit." I was a little bit worried there too, but okay. He said, "Well, we managed that." I said, "But the worst thing is," she said, I said, "What is it, sweetie?" "The worst thing is I don't know if that pop concert that I want to go to in July, if that still is going to happen." Is that much different, by the way, that I am secretly very worried that Blackpool, my most favorite dance competition in the year, is also not going to happen.
Yeah.
Is that much different, right? To be honest, my reaction to her was, of course, be a parent, be responsible. That should not be your first priority, yada yada yada. But at the same time, I was looking at my Blackpool tickets, a stack this big, because I have them from many friends. Some of them are on the phone here, and they are probably completely useless. Hopefully, we get a refund. Who knows, right? Who knows? I don't know, right? And that's a lot of money. I can tell you that's a few $1,000s right there, you know. And was that at that time a responsible expense to do? Yeah. But now, if I would have to think about buying Blackpool tickets right now, I don't have work. Let's not do that, right? Can I do? Does anyone want to buy my Blackpool tickets this year? Right? No one. So it's completely worthless. But anyhow, so I have to rethink a few things as well. But of course, there was a lesson in there for young people too. Young people think, hey, I am not in a group that is at risk. I'm healthy. I'm young. Jean said it exactly on Facebook. It's less than 3%. Chances I don't get it. I can go around. But young people, you can still, infect other people. So, please also take your responsibility there. If you're not in the group that is at risk, you have an influence on them, and that comes to my final point. It takes us a virus sometimes to realize that all the actions that we do can have an influence on other people.
Yeah.
So, can we please maybe make that one of our life principles, that everything that I do on a daily basis can have an influence on someone else? Now we need to have a virus to see that responsibility, right? And I cannot tell you how to deal with that responsibility. That's not my place at all. I definitely don't know if all the things that I told you can be positive about. I think I verified them as best as I could, but I'm not a doctor. But what I am a normal person, and in this case, I'm a life coach. And what is true as a life coach is that yes, life coach is all about improving your own life. But life coaching is completely meaningless for me if you don't put your life in service of other people, right? And service of other people has something to do with influencing other people in a positive way. It takes a freaking virus for us to understand that and teach those lessons. That's a sad story, people. That is for me the true sad story in the coronavirus, right? So anyhow, I'm done. I was inspired by the lights that were not really working well, but that was my delivery of today about the coronavirus. I hope I was not too harsh on you, for the people on Facebook, and I hope you saw the humor in there too. So stay positive. That is always a good advice, right? Try to figure out where in your life you could actually maybe after the coronavirus change it up so that a couple of these things won't happen to you anymore. Let the medical people deal with, how to stop viruses like corona. But there's always what I call a spiritual lesson in all these bigger things that happening in the life and it's in life and in the world. And it's not always easy to see that. I feel blessed that I have been put in a position where I don't know who, but get sometimes these insights. I hope you share the insights if you agree with them. If not, then I entertained you for an hour here at the place, right? If you like the place, by the way, we have a certain purpose in with the place. We would hope that if you talk about spreading things, like if you think it's a positive thing, I don't say that so often at the end of the place, but I want to say it this time first and foremost because Irene sent me a list that I have to say these things because I always forget them, right? Is, if you think the place is really good for you, then spread that too, right? Invite other people. There's literally no limitation of how many people can listen and call into the place. So why would we not invite other people if we think it's good for us, right? I assume that the people call in every week think it's good for them. If not, you have a very sad life. If you just call in and you don't think it's good for you, right? So there you are. So that's one thing. And as you know, the place will always be for free, at least Tuesday calls. So no worries right there. But it's completely the wrong time to point it out, but I do it anyhow. Of course, we ask for support for in this time at least for the non-profit organization to stop sexual abuse, a dance movement to stop sexual abuse. We hope at the place actually that we get so big that we can actually support other non-profit organizations too. So that's what we stand for. That's what you guys stand for if you are calling into the place.